I am worried about us. I'm worried about our culture. I am deeply worried. Just yesterday, I was reading a story of a 30-year-old woman who was an executive in a big business. She was traveling abroad for that business, and while she was waiting in the airport, she tweeted just a few things to a few friends, just 170 of them, she said. She actually chuckled as she sent the tweet, thinking it was kind of funny and they would get a kick out of it. Frankly, those tweets she sent were small-minded and judgmental. They were not cool things to write, that's for sure. But before the plane took off, she checked her phone one more time, and there were no tweets. Nobody had tweeted back, no responses. She shrugged it off, and the plane took off. It was a long flight. By the time she landed, she turned her phone back on, and there were tens of thousands of tweets, angry tweets. In hours, she became the #1 trend in Twitter worldwide. And most every single tweet shredded her. Shredded her person, shredded her job, shredded her character. In seconds, she was rendered unclean. By now, we all know the story of Braun Williams. Up until 10 days ago, he was the most trusted newscaster in America by all accounts. But when he got caught in a repeated exaggeration, deception, lie, he was quickly fired from his job as the newscaster of the highest-rated news show in America. And while that's a business decision, I suspect that I somewhat understand. What I really don't understand is how viral it has gone and how horrible the things that people are saying about him in tweets, on Facebook, and on blogs, and on all social media have become. The vitriol is unbelievable. I cannot get over how quickly people decide that he's evil, that he's the newest unclean among us. Things are being said that he really can't undo. And it almost seems like there's sort of this sick glee that people seem to take in this stuff, these bloggers. They seem to get some sort of toxic satisfaction out of this vitriol. It's sickening. It's barbaric. It's some sort of Colosseum culture all over again. And it leaves no place for mercy. Even though he has publicly apologized, admitted his mistake, there's no place for mercy. I'm talking mean. I'm talking shaming. I'm talking unclean. Is this what we've come to? Shaming is going out of our way to make someone look ugly to someone else or to the world. Shaming is taking a wrong choice that someone made and letting it become a judgment against the whole person, rendering the whole person bad, rendering the whole person unlovable, unclean. Today's text from our scriptures are about leprosy. In Jesus' culture, the leper was the unclean one. The leper was the one who was terribly shamed. Listen again about what the leper had to do. The person with a leprous disease shall wear torn clothes so that he's obvious. She has to let her hair on her head be disheveled, and she shall cover her upper lip, and she has to cry out constantly whenever anybody appears, unclean, unclean, I'm unclean. A person shall remain unclean as long as the disease persists, and being unclean, the person shall live alone with a dwelling outside the camp, away from the whole world. The leper was unacceptable, unlovable, shunned and avoided. So was anyone who associated with him. But Jesus would have none of that. Jesus would risk his reputation by welcoming the leper into his company, touching the person who suffered from leprosy, and reconnecting that shunned and shamed woman or man to the community. Jesus refused to let anyone be shamed or cut off ever for anything any longer. And now our modern lepers, I guess they're sort of the people at the top who fall. But maybe it's even the people at the bottom, too, who fall. We take too much pleasure in eviscerating them in front of the world. Who do we think we are? We take fiendish delight, it seems, in the other side falling. In politics we do. In religion we do. In our own families we do it. Some sort of fiendish delight that they got caught. See? For some of us that all happens in our own head, and we never say it out loud, but we're sure thinking it, aren't we? That's bad enough. But to put that out there in front of the whole world, that's a whole nother level of wrong. Really? Is this what we've come to? Public shaming. Public shaming was big in this country in the 1700s and the 1800s. People who messed up, they were publicly shamed. I remember in high school reading the Scarlet Letter about how at that time a woman caught in adultery had to wear this huge A on her chest and walk the streets of the city shamed. No one would associate her, and even worse, no one would associate with her kids. I remember thinking in high school, I'm so glad we don't do that anymore. That's just one example. But is that what we're going back to now? Public shaming? Is that really how we want to live? We are of an age, my friends, where it's too easy to spew out comments so hurtful and so destructive all across the internet in front of the whole world. But before any of us too quickly condemn now and shame those tweeters, maybe it would do us well to look in the mirror. Look in the mirror first and ask ourselves, when was the last time I gossiped about someone to try to make them look bad to somebody else? Gossip destroys communities. Gossip kills people's reputation, kills them. Gossip murders people's character. And I would say that it's the worst of many who gossip that at its worst, they're even almost complicit in some suicides. As a matter of fact, when people hear you do it, what they're going to decide is that it's okay to gossip about you too, because apparently you're okay with gossip. I see it all the time. And even worse, you won't be trusted. Tell me, why would I trust anybody who gossips in front of me with my heart? Because I know as sure as I'm standing there, they will gossip about me and someone will listen. Is that what you want? It's time to stop this. Stop it. If you're looking for something to give up this Lent, this season of the great fast that begins this Wednesday, how about fasting from gossip? How about fasting from forwarding those tweets or any other things in social media that make anybody else or any group of people look bad? How about stopping these public acts of shaming, this meanness that's becoming way too acceptable? It's not okay. It's just not okay. Let's make a pact, you and I. Let's make sure we take any complaint or concern or negative feeling about someone to the right person. To the right person. Never again to the wrong person. And that goes for you husbands and wives as well, and you partners with others, lifelong partners. It's not okay just because you're married to this person to trash somebody else because they're in your extended family and just because you're married now. It's not okay to drive home from a dinner party after in someone's home and make fun of some of the people around that table or talk trash about the people there or talk trash about the home you were in and how poor they are at keeping it clean and their taste. You know what? It makes you look ugly. And I would hope it makes you look ugly even to your partner. It's only okay to talk about someone. It is only okay to talk about someone with concern and an intention to bring it to them, or at least help me get it together so that I can bring it to them now. But ultimately, it must be brought to the right person. Agreed? Let's make a pact, you and I, that we will no longer listen to somebody going off on someone else without trying at least to bring it back to the person who's going off on them and having them take responsibility for their feelings of hurt or whatever without challenging them to talk to the person they're talking about. The listener has got to step up here, you see. Or even when it comes to the internet, let's respond to some of that vitriol with a kind challenge, but not in a post. I've made that mistake. Not in a post. In a personal message. Don't hit post, hit message. And send back a kind question that might make them think about what they said from another perspective, from your perspective. Or at the very least, if you can't do that, then block it. Block that junk. You deserve better. Love demands no less. This is a demand of the gospel, my friends. There's no two ways around it. And can I suggest just one more pact? Let's make a pact that when somebody asks for forgiveness, a person we know or a public person, that we forgive them. We don't have to vote for them again. You don't have to go to dinner with them. But you know what? We can forgive them. It's what I would want the next time I mess up. I'd bet you would like that too, wouldn't you? To be forgiven the next time you mess up, instead of being eviscerated. When we screw up, we just want to be forgiven. Why would we not offer that to the last person, especially a person of power or privilege, or anyone who does the same? Every year, when we gather with the new students here, the new freshmen, I tell them up front that the Catholic Student Center at Washington University will never be a place where they will be shamed, ever. They will never be shamed for anything they've ever done, or for any disagreement, or for any question or doubt of faith or no faith. They will never be shamed for their sins or for their backgrounds, for who they are, or for anything they've ever done, ever. We promise them that they will never be shamed here. And I hold this whole community to that promise. I pledge to all of you that as long as you are here in these walls and on these grounds, I promise to you and I pledge to you that you will never be shamed here, ever. Not on my watch, ever. Nor will I ever let you do that to anybody else who's here. This is a place for you to be safe, to be who you are, as you are, always. That 30-year-old young executive was the recipient of a lot of shaming. She's a broken woman, fired. She cries a lot. All for posting a poorly considered joke on social media. The career of Braun Williams, destroyed. He did a bad thing. But as my mom always says, Gary, two wrongs don't make a right. He did a bad thing. He apologized. And still tens of thousands have gone out of their way to destroy him. We are better than that. In the name of Jesus, we are better than that.